Hello and welcome back to EFD guys, where today we're looking at 10 great players who met terrible ends. 10. George Best. George Best was one of the first superstar footballers, a magical dribbler with good looks which made him famous beyond the game. The Northern Irishman was a league and European Cup winner with Manchester United, but unfortunately his love for football gradually fell behind his love for the bottle. In his playing days, Best's body had been sharp and quick, a machine which ate up the ground and left defenders eating the turf. But by his 50s, it was crumbling, with a liver transplant merely staving off the inevitable. Organ failure and internal bleeding set in, and Best died in London, aged just 59. He was buried next to his mother, who had also died of alcohol-related illnesses, aged just 54. Despite his many triumphs, Best was bankrupt at the time of his death and couldn't afford mounting medical bills either. His memory is a great one, but his life was way too short. 9. Herbert Chapman. A manager who brought Arsenal and Huddersfield Town 2 First Division titles apiece. Herbert Chapman was one of the game's greatest innovators. Kit numbers, floodlights and the European Cup were amongst many of his ideas that became popularised. Chapman lived and breathed football. He practically invented the tactics board, one time painting a football pitch on top of his desk so he could demonstrate strategies to his team. He also got Arsenal Tube Station built and was the first coach to pay £10,000 for a player when he signed David Jack for the Gunners back in 1928. Apparently, Chapman knew that Bolton would drive a hard bargain for their star forward, so he got them all drunk before negotiations started. Techers. In January 1934, Chapman caught a cold, having travelled to Sheffield to scout Wednesday play before Arsenal played them later that week. He returned to London a little under the weather, but insisted on attending a match between Arsenal's third team and Guildford City. Unfortunately, the strain was too much, with Chapman developing pneumonia. He died on January 6th, aged just 55. 8. Ruben De la Red. Thankfully, unlike some others coming up on this list, De la Red's heart condition was found before it was too late, but it still meant that the Real Madrid forward had to retire prematurely aged just 25. Growing up in the suburbs of Madrid, he came through a tumultuous time yo-yoing in and out of Los Blancos' academy, but never made the grade and went to Getafe after just 16 appearances in the first team. De la Red made 49 appearances in his solitary season for the Azulones before Madrid activated their buyback clause. His return didn't go quite as planned, playing just 11 games before being taken to hospital after he fainted, where he was diagnosed with a serious heart condition. De la Red missed the rest of the season as well as the whole of 09-010, and his number 18 shirt was eventually given to Raul Albiol. Unfortunately, he had to retire, but Madrid tried to find ways to annul his contract. They claimed his heart problem was a common condition, meaning they wouldn't have to pay the rest of his contract, just a €1,500 a month disability benefit. You dirty, dirty bastards. Once linked with Arsenal, De la Red is now a coach, and the European champion was part of Mourinho's backroom staff before managing Getafe's youth side, swiftly leaving them after getting them relegated. 7. Andres Escobar. Like his more famous namesake, Andres Escobar was born in Medellin, and he died there too, a victim of the drug violence which gripped Colombia in the 80s and 90s. Going into the 1994 World Cup, Colombia were considered contenders for the trophy, with Carlos Valderrama pulling the strings in midfield, Faustino Asprilla up front, and Escobar running that back line. But a loss to Romania saw a death threat sent to the team, and after Escobar scored an own goal against the USA, the team flew home with their heads firmly down. Ashamed, Escobar went out to a bar to drown his sorrows, when a bodyguard from a drug cartel pulled up and shot him 6 times, reportedly shouting "Goal" with each shot. Crazy. It was believed that the killer acted on behalf of his boss, who had lost a large sum betting on Colombia to win. Escobar was only 27 years old. 6. Antonio Puerta. A native Sevillano, Antonio Puerta spent the whole of his brief career with the Andalusian side, winning 2 UEFA Cups, the Copa del Rey, and picking up a single cap with the Spanish national team. A left-sided player who could operate at fullback or winger, Puerta's form attracted the likes of Manchester United and Arsenal, while Real Madrid actually made a bid for the player after he rejected a new contract from Sevilla. But tragedy struck on the first game of the 07-08 campaign as Puerta suffered a heart attack during a game against Getafe. He lost consciousness and was taken off, somehow walking to the changing room before collapsing again. He suffered multiple organ failure and brain damage and died 3 days later. It turned out Puerta had a congenital heart defect which was never discovered. He left behind his pregnant girlfriend. 5. Salvador Cabanas. Paraguay's Salvador Cabanas was a versatile forward who bagged 174 goals in 314 games in his homeland, Mexico, Brazil and Chile. Powerful and two-footed, Cabanas won 44 caps for Paraguay and was set to represent the national team at the 2010 World Cup until disaster struck. Cabanas was out in a bar in Mexico City when he got into an argument in the bathroom with another patron. Unfortunately for the player, the man he argued with was a member of the Beltran-Levia drug cartel, and the gangster followed Cabanas into the bathroom where he shot him in the head. Amazingly, the footballer didn't die and was able to make a return to the game just 2 years later. However, he never scored another goal and admitted that due to the incident, he lost his footballing rhythm. Meanwhile, his seemingly unsympathetic wife reportedly stole more than £6 million from him, and he eventually had to move back in with his parents, where he now works in the family bakery. 4. Gary Speed. Welsh midfielder Gary Speed won the love of the Newcastle faithful during 6 years on Tyneside, scoring 40 goals in nearly 300 appearances for the Magpies. Before that, he was triumphant in the league with Leeds in 1992 and made the team of the season the following campaign. Speed was capped 85 times by Wales and actually captained the side in 44 of those games. He also went on to manage the national team after retirement, helping the Dragons climb 72 places in the FIFA World Rankings, reaching 45th. However, in November 2011, Speed's wife found the footballer hanging in their garage and he was declared dead when the police arrived. In the aftermath, Speed's friends and family struggled to make sense of his death, with reports of depression and marital concerns coming from the media. Whatever the reason, Speed was only 42 when he passed away and left behind a wife and 2 sons, a terrible waste from a great player and great man. 2 and 3, Knobby Stiles and the 1966 England team. It's actually a myth that footballs were heavier in the old days. The weight of a modern ball, as specified by FIFA, must be between 410 and 450 grams, while in the old days the maximum was actually 425 grams. But old balls were made of leather and so would absorb water from the pitch, resulting in something more like a bowling ball. As a result, headers could be dangerous, and recent studies have actually linked waterlogged footballs with dementia. Knobby Stiles, Ray Wilson and Martin Peters, heroes of England's 1966 World Cup win, have all developed Alzheimer's disease since retirement, and doctors fear that the game which brought them their greatest triumph might have also robbed them of their health. Considering what those 3 Lions and so many of their generation gave to the game, it is a terrible form of repayment. 1. José Leandro Andrade. Andrade played as a wing half with the great Uruguay team of the 1920s. Essentially a defensive midfielder, Andrade was fast and skillful, with his talent and intelligence earning him the nickname the Black Pearl, a dubious title later bestowed on Pelé. Also a gifted musician, Andrade won the Uruguayan League with Nacional and Peñarol, as well as 2 Olympic gold medals at international level. In 1930, he lit up the inaugural World Cup, playing every minute as La Celeste lifted the trophy and making the tournament's all-star team. On a tour of Europe, hundreds of thousands of spectators turned out to see the game's first black superstar. But life was tough on Andrade too. He'd been desperately poor as a child, where he had to sleep on a dirt floor, and as an adult, he found himself unable to deal with his fame. Alcoholism took hold of him, and he contracted syphilis during a tour of Europe, a disease which later left him blind in one eye. He disappeared from the public eye in the 1930s and was eventually found drunk and alone by a journalist in the 1950s. He died in an asylum at the age of 56, having returned to poverty. So guys, there are 10 great players who met unfortunate ends. Is there anyone else you'd like us to shed light on? Let us know in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe.